Assalamualaikum. My name is Cik Muhammad Ajmal Fahman bin Cik Saidin. My matric number is 278101. Today, I will discuss a little bit about a psychological experiment video that I studied. That is Little Albert Experiment. Little Albert Experiment is an experiment conducted by psychologists John B. Watson and Rosalie Rayner in 1920 by a baby named Albert who was 9 months old. Little Albert Experiment is implemented using the classical theory method first founded by Ivan Pavlov, in which it highlights the philosophy in classical conditioning. The Little Albert Experiment was also an experiment related to the theory of behaviorism, which this experiment also had connection from experiments that show the process of conditioning in dogs carried out by Ivan Pavlov in 1980, only that it was conducted classically in humans to observe the human emotion. How the Little Albert's experiment methods are implemented. The first step in Little Albert experiment is in Italy, the experiment was conducted by Watson with Albert B. allowed to play the fire. Monkey, dog, rabbit, and rat. And lastly, Watson wearing a scary mask to scare Albert, but Albert showed no reaction whatsoever, whether sad, crying, and so on. But Albert just showed off his reaction as if nothing had happened. And now comes to the conditioning. At one moment, Watson gave Albert play with a white rat. After that, while Albert was playing with a white rat, Watson had hit the hammer on an iron pole that produced a very loud sound. Because of this, Albert had been frightened and continued to cry. Because many times Watson did that to Albert when he was playing white rats, causing Albert to fear that if he played with a white rat, would make that loud noise come out. So after the incident thing, Albert didn't want to play with the white thing because he was afraid to see thing white and fluffy even though the hammer sound was wrong. The theory applied in the Little Albert experiment is classical theory founded by Ivan Pavlov. Classical theory is the learning process in which neutral stimuli make association with stimuli in pairs repeatedly. Classical theory can also be known by the theory behaviorism, which is reassuring that each behavior can be observed and can be formed and improved through a new learning process. In John B. Watson's classic theory of execution, he believed humans possess three natural emotions: fear, anger, and affection. He believed that behavior and every emotion is learned through the surrounding situation and that it can be learned with classical habituation processes and new learning processes. This is because John B. Watson believed every emotion of fear, sadness is a thing to learn. and it does not happen by itself. In the end, in the little Albert experiment, Watson had concluded that Albert had connected a strong band with the white rat he saw. Through it too, Albert has learned fearful behavior, and the condition is called generalization according to classical conditioning theory. Finally, in this theory also, Watson argues a reflex movement that is simple occurs naturally and does not need to be studied. In the meantime, they also learn the responses to adapt themselves to new situations. Next, we go on to the therapy. So, the therapy that used in the little Albert experiment was conducted with the first way is the principle of learning based on these experiments is applied by counselors systematically to help clients change their maladaptive behavior. The second step is behavior counselor to help the client deal with the current problem and understand the factors that influence him to assess the determinant or historical cause of the behavior. The main focus is to assess real and unreal behavior, directly identify problems, and assess changes. The behavior approach anticipates that change can occur without saving on the underlying dynamic. Behavior treatment interventions are made individually depending on the problem the client experiences and the suitability of the treatment with the client. How it is applied in particular field. The approach used in the Little Albert experiment can be used in the field of learning or education to students through the training and experience approaches implemented. This is done in a way that can ensure that the student is more attentive and understands the form and syllabus of learning taught by his teacher through the process of repetition and emphasis as well as the various learning methods applied. For example, teachers need to remind students of a title and students also need to review lessons more often to help them understand that learning is good. As a result, the student may understand better and know everything they learn in this way. Conclusion. The Little Albert experiment provided a lot of contribution and knowledge in various fields, especially psychology, in the aspect of assessing human behavior. Moreover, Little Albert experiment also explains that in every behavior, event and everything that we fear and phobias must have certain causes and experiences that influence it. Thus, through this Little Albert experiment, we can find out and learn that the behaviors and emotions of a person can also be formed through methods of learning by means of habitual or classical conditioning.